Hey folks, Jim Zaspel coming at you here from jimzaspel.com with a great topic that, I'm going to say it's not a question I get asked a lot, but it's a mistake I see a lot of real estate investors making, and that is trying to rehab houses in the wrong areas. So what is the wrong area when it comes to, rehabbing houses, and how, more importantly, how can you determine the right areas in which to rehab houses? Now, when I say rehabbing, what I mean is you buy it and you fix it and then you sell it to a buyer who's going to cash you out, meaning get a loan, get financing, and just buy the house outright. So here it is. Here are some factors you want to look for and questions you want to ask about the deal when you're deciding if this deal that you're looking at is one that makes for a good rehab project. Here we go. Get your pen out. Got some important stuff here for you. So first of all, the first indicator is when you pull your comps, that's your comparable sales, you want to pull the active listings, the pending transactions, as well as the sold comps, okay? So when you pull those three types of comps, what I like to look at is the ratio of active listings versus the pending and the sold transactions. So it's three different types. If you're in trend, I think that's usually the green ones are the active, the yellow is pending, and red is settled. So anyway, let's just think about that for a second. Let's say if you pull comps out to a half mile, if you're in a suburban area, out to a half mile radius from the subject property, and you got 40 comps, right? And let's say that out of 40 comps, 28 or let's say 30 of them are actively on the market. Does that sound like an area where stuff is flying off the shelf and the inventory is very low? No, inventory is very high. What does that mean? Does that mean it's an area you absolutely should not invest in? No, it doesn't, but you need to proceed with extreme caution. Why? Because if you're going to add your house to the other 30 that are for sale, you got to ask yourself, why in the heck is somebody going to buy your house as opposed to somebody else's? Now, a lot of investors like, oh, well, mine's just going to be awesome, and people are going to, fall all over themselves to buy mine. Well, I got news for you. You got to assume the opposite. You got to assume that all else being equal, buyers are not going to buy your house. So you got to ask yourself, how are you going to make yours better? So you got two options. There's really three. There's exactly three ways to make your house stand out from your competition. First of all is price. Now, price is my least favorite way to make my house that I'm selling stand out above my competition. Competition being all the other houses that are getting sold in that neighborhood at that time. Because I hate competing on price. My favorite way to compete is on quality in terms of rehabbing. Quality is the best way to differentiate yourself, set yourself apart from your competition. We'll talk more about that a little bit later in terms of what kind of rehab to do. Third way to set yourself apart from your competition is in the terms of the financing, which in most instances, if you're rehabbing houses, does not apply, but that would be like a lease option or an owner financing. If you're selling a house on a lease option, you can charge more and do it doesn't have to be as rehabbed as it is if you're selling to finance buyers, because your buyers are more plentiful. So financing, quality, or price. Favorite one's quality. That's what we're going to talk about. So knowing that, you're gonna look through, in this example, out of 40 comps, active, pending, and sold, you're gonna look at those 30 that are on the market. That's 75%. That's a high ratio. I get nervous if more than half of the total comps are the active listings. Okay, so if you got 75%, that's really pushing it. So you're gonna look at those comps and say, well, are there any other newly rehabbed houses, similar houses for sale that are not selling? The answer is yes, and you can tell by just the finishes in them and the public remarks. Then you say, well, did they do something wrong? Is there something functionally obsolete about that house, a reason it isn't selling? There may or may not be, but if there's 3 or 4 other newly rehabbed houses that have been on the market for a month or 2 or 3, I recommend you not buy there, okay? Tells me you're right off the bat, it's gonna be an uphill battle, it's gonna be hard to sell that house, and I'll tell you, you make your money as a rehabber in the velocity of money. This is a term I learned in the past year, the velocity of money, the speed at which you can turn the money. I actually read that in a Tham Merrill book, I forget what it was called, but it was a great point. Anyway, so that's one thing you're looking at, all right? And so then the other factor is, let's say that 40%, so let's say 18 out of 40 comps. Remember, you're pulling active, pending, and sold transactions. Out of those 40 of those three categories, 18 of them are on the market. Oh, great. Less than half are active. That means 22 out of 40 are either pending, about to be sold, under contract to sell, that is, or they have sold. That's a great ratio. I'm cool with that, right? Now, in some areas, you'll find where it's even lower than that. But let's just say that. So just over half are pending or settled. What you need to look at is the average DOM. That's a days on market. Days on market that the houses are for sale, both the active, the pending, and the settled. Okay. Now, here's what you'll notice once you start doing this much at all. You'll notice that out of, let's say, 10 settled comps, 10 comps that have sold, there can be some that sell like in a matter of 2 weeks or less, and there are some that sell in 60 to 90 days. So you got to learn to ask yourself, what's the difference between those two houses? Is it the location? Is it the school district? Which, by the way, your comp should always be in the same school district as the subject property you're looking at. And then you've got to ask yourself, is there a difference in the quality of the rehab? Is it is there a difference in the number of bedrooms, that kind of stuff, right? And so you always want to make sure that your house is like or even better than the ones that sold really quickly. Okay. So you really want to, the days on market is a huge indicator in terms of how hot an area is. So, all right, let's back up, rewind, and recap. So how do you determine if an area is a good area to flip houses in? All right. One, look at pull your active, pending, and settled comps. Look at the ratio of active listings versus pending and settled. Second, look at the days on market for all three categories, okay? And then you want to look at, what's different about those houses, right? And when you're looking at your comps, make sure the school district is the same. Sometimes you'd be within a quarter mile, but there's a big geographical barrier, and you might not want to be on one side of that or the other, right? And next is the school district. Make sure it's in a good school district where people want to live and where the kids want to buy. You got to know your target buyer. For most of the houses we sell, it's younger couples that buy them, and so we do a little bit more yuppie modern finishes in some instances, right? It's got to be clean and crisp, move-in ready. They don't want to do anything. Kids my age, people my age are lazy. They don't want to do anything, and so we got to make sure they're 100% move-in ready. So you want to keep that in mind as well. But they're going to have kids soon, so you can just do some simple research to check out the school districts. Quick little secret here: when you're on trend, pulling your comps, what you want to do is look at the not just the DOM, but the PMP, property marketing period. Because what happens sometimes is an agent, a seller might cancel a listing or withdraw it, and then relist it again, right? Well, my understanding is if that's done within 30 days, if it's a relist within 30 or 31 days of the original listing being canceled, then it just adds on to the PMP, even though DOM is lower, days on market. So you can't go solely by days on market. You got to look at the property marketing period, make sure those are the same. And if the property marketing period is longer, then that's really kind of like the real days on market. In most instances, there's some exceptions to that. So anyway, I hope that helps you out. That's probably your best way to know if an area, besides actually driving around, which there's nothing wrong with. If you're breaking into a market right now and you're trying to decide where to rehab houses, you got to just drive the neighborhoods. You'll learn a lot just by observing that, keeping an eye on the streets. And of course, if you're going to flip a house, you don't want it to be in a rental area, okay? The overarching one rule you can follow is do business where people want to live. And when you do that, your business will just be a lot easier to sustain. You'll be able to sell houses a lot quicker. So anyway, hope that helps you determining where to do business. Have a great day.